Joining us today. It's clear by your presence how deeply loved and cared for our dad was, and we're so grateful that you're here. It's in times like these that I'm at a loss for words and I turn to literature, so I'm going to let Thoreau speak for me. Half the walk is but retracing your steps. We should go forth on the shortest walk, perchance in the spirit of undying adventure, never to return. Prepared to send our embalmed hearts only as relics to our desolate kingdoms. If you are ready to leave your father and mother and brother and sister and wife and child and friends and never see them again, then you're ready to walk. Here Thoreau is asking us to live in the moment and embrace what is in the present, to hold tightly to the things in front of us. And it is in this adventurous and inquisitive spirit that I remember my dad. A man who was deep of caring for his family and friends. He always had a way of making you feel truly heard and seen when you were in his presence. He taught me and my siblings many things, like how to make sweet tea the right way, how to drive a car, to always do the right thing even when it's hard, that anyone can do simple mechanic work, and most importantly, how to milk a rat. But most of all, he taught every one of us to love music, especially the drums. In trying to figure out what to say today, I had realized he already given me all that we needed. So bear with me while I read a poem of some of his favorite songs. Dig it, if you will, a picture. Here comes the sun, and I say it's all right. Proud Mary, keep on burning. Crazy, but that's how it goes. We're just living for today. For those about to rock, we salute you. Just keep on rocking me, baby. But time keeps on slipping into the future. All these places and these moments with lovers and friends I still can recall. In my life, I love them all. I can feel it coming in the air tonight. Someone told me long ago there's a calm before the storm. From Phoenix, Arizona, all the way to Tacoma, Philadelphia, Atlanta, LA. I climbed the mountain and I turned around. Your pain and your hunger were driving you home. Won't you take me home tonight? Fly like an eagle, let the spirit carry you. I remember, don't worry. It's the first time, the last time we ever met. Now here you go again, you say you want your freedom. I know you got your reasons. Who am I to keep you down? Before you go, if I can ask you one thing, maybe it's not too late. Please remember to loosen your load. I know you've got a world of trouble on your mind. Take it easy. Ugh, sorry. You know, it seems the more we talk about it, it only makes it worse to live without it. Maybe I'm just too demanding. Maybe I'm just like my father, too bold. Thank you. And now I'm gonna let my mom speak.
So over the last few weeks, I've been doing a lot of reflecting on the time I spent with Pat and Pat's life. So I'm going to read you what are my thoughts about the memories that many of us have had with Pat and shared with Pat. So Pat was born March 24th, 1959 to Evelyn Steadwell and Billy Evans in Odessa, Texas. He is preceded in death by his parents, his eldest brother Mike Evans and his wife Sharon, and his nephews Kurt Evans, Eric Evans, and Michael Evans. He is survived by his 3 children, Brian Kelly, her husband Dustin, Brenda and her husband Dick. Also survived by grandchildren, Penelope, Zeta, Jade, and Isla Evans, Malachi, Lucian, Draven Wilson, and Caden Lynn, as well as his brother Daryl, his sister Kathy, and her husband Jean, his sister Christy, his sister Kim, and her husband Marty. In addition, many nephews, nieces, and aunts and uncles that are here today. He was always proud to say he was born in the big state of Texas. Most of his childhood was spent in Colorado, but he always remembered Texas as being his birthplace. Although we grew up a block from each other, we did not meet until high school. Since we went to different schools, after meeting in high school, he told me he used to see me in my Catholic school uniform, waiting for the bus when he walked to school. He said one day, "I'm going to marry that girl." He pursued me until we became a couple. We enjoyed our high school years together. He was in track when we first met. However, he did not continue in order to spend more time with me. High school was a very enjoyable time. Friday night football games followed by hanging out at the local Burger King. Can't do that anymore. At times, the parking lot in the entire Burger King was inundated with high school kids hanging out. We attended concerts and planned picnics in the mountain. He always made homecoming and prom special, planning where to eat, dressing up, and obtaining the customary corsage. A lot of time was also spent in the back of Stan's Charger. Stan over there.
I tried not to look.
Cruising the streets, occasional drag racing, and just hanging out. Often the back seat was 2 people high. There was time spent at the neighbor's house. Mr. Western was one of Stan's friends, from swimming in the backyard pool to watching reel-to-reel movies before they were in the movie theater. That is where we first viewed Blazing Saddles. Pat loved the slapstick humor, and his sense of humor is one thing that he passed down to his kids. After high school, Pat moved to Keystone with his friends Stan and Greg. They were working at the mine in Leadville. This was before cell phones. So throughout the week, we would write letters to each other, which were treasured for many years. Pat would come home on weekends to see me. There was one time he topped Floyd Hill at 90 miles per hour. As he flew by, he noticed a state trooper who just let him go.
Wow.
The winter was rough in Keystone, driving to Leadville and often sliding off the road, so Pat moved back to Thornton area. Shortly after, he started working at Pepsi in Denver. We talked often about getting married, Pat always saying, "I want a blonde-haired, blue-eyed boy," and I'd respond, "Then I want a dark-haired, green-eyed girl." We married in 1980, and then Brian was born in 1981 with blonde hair and blue eyes, followed by Kelly in 1984 and Brenda in 1987. Pat enjoyed family, friends, and social events. We spent time with family and friends for barbecues, movie nights, and holidays. Holidays were often spent traveling from the Evans family to the Johnsons family, often on the same day. At the Evans family holidays, time was spent playing rummy after the dinner and dishes were finished. At one gathering at the Johnson family, we were all in the family room. Pat had been gone for a while, but with such a large family, it wasn't noticed. Then the phone rings. It's Pat, and he's locked in the bathroom and can't get out. We all enjoyed sharing that story over the years. Pat loved the Broncos. During football season, there was always a gathering at someone's house to eat and cheer on the team. When we moved into the house on 102nd Avenue, it was game day. So we had all the family help move in, then it was hook up the TV to watch the game, leaving unpacking for later. Pat enjoyed hosting Bronco Super Bowl parties at her house. Both times he hosted the Broncos, they won the Super Bowl. He was a diehard Bronco fan, attending games when he could. Even went to the game in a blizzard when others didn't want to go and gave their tickets away and stayed until the very end. He came home with icicles that day. He took pride in his Native American heritage. He loved the southwestern decor. He had met Skip, a tattoo artist who did home tattoo parties during the emergence of AIDS in the 80s. Pat hosted several tattoo parties, inviting friends and co-workers to participate. He wanted an Indian headdress tattoo on his arm. He had found a picture he wanted to be used. Typically, Skip wanted his customers to use the ones already created, but Pat convinced Skip's wife, Michelle, to draw it out, and that is how he was able to get the tattoo he wanted. Once we were invited to a party hosted by Skip and Michelle in Brighton. The party started off with socializing and eating great food. As the sun went down, the party became a little wild. A lot of Skip's and Michelle's friends were old bikers and ex-veterans. Before we knew it, they were launching M80s over the house across the street. The house across the street was apparently home to migrants, therefore they weren't worried about them calling the police. That was one party where Pat was one of the first to leave. Pat always enjoyed staying to the end of the party. Pat was well liked and had many friends from working at Pepsi. He spent time with them at annual summer events, forklift competitions, and the annual Christmas parties. One of his best friends from Pepsi is Gary Romero. Their friendship brought our families together, spending weekends at each other's houses, watching movies, having barbecues, playing pool. Pat enjoyed the family summer vacations. The first vacation we spent going to California with Ron, Christy, Kim, Marty, Ovalin, Brian, and Stephanie. We had rented an RV and loaded all aboard for the journey. We spent time in Las Vegas as well. This was when the movie Jaws had first come out. One day we were on the beach watching Pat swim out into the ocean. All of a sudden we see a dolphin swimming towards Pat. Pat suddenly comes eye to eye with the dolphin. Both Pat and the dolphin see each other and terrified swim away. Pat to the shore as quickly as possible and the dolphin out to the ocean. I know, Christy, you remember we laughed so hard about that one.
At first we thought it was a shark.
We thought it was a shark because Jaws just came out. Summer vacations were spent camping at Lake McConaughey in Nebraska with friends, traveling to see family in Texas, David and Lori in Austin, Grandma and Grandpa Cold Iron in Odessa. That trip we spent time in Houston going to Six Flags, time in Austin, time in San Antonio. We went down the Riverwalk, and when we came up, we ended up in the bad part of town, and it took us a while to find our camper. Then we were off to see Grandma and Grandpa Cold Iron. We traveled to Arizona to see his dad, Billy, and Mary, then on to California. Also traveled to Iowa for a family reunion after going through South Dakota and Mount Rushmore. Trips to Florida and Seattle as well, going to Disney World, SeaWorld, Knott's Berry Farm, and Universal Studios. One year we took the kids on a trip around Colorado. Every time we got back in the car, Pat would start singing, "On the Road Again." He didn't remember all the words, neither did I. Then one night we were gathered around a campfire with a sing-along. The singer began singing the song, "On the Road Again." The kids looked at us in shock that it was really a song. The family cruise we took was an awesome time, hanging out with brothers and sisters, enjoying the dancing shows, casinos, and visiting the islands. Pat spent time with his brother Daryl often. They accomplished a lot of home improvement projects. Always calling Daryl, can you come over and help me? A lot of those times spent well together. He also enjoyed time spent with Mike and Sharon, trips to Black Hawk, Las Vegas, playing softball, at the Eagles Club with the darts and shuffleboard competitions, and moonlight bowling, if anyone remembers the old moonlight bowling. Pat was a great friend, always willing to lend a hand. He was a great listener. He was kind, passionate, always remained positive. He enjoyed his grandchildren on Facebook, always commenting and congratulating on their accomplishments. May you cherish these memories and those you have of your own, and remember the happy times. May he rest in peace, knowing he was loved and cherished as a father, a brother, a friend.
Hi everyone, I'm Gary Romero. Me and Pat met in the early 80s at Pepsi. We worked together. At the first time we hung out, we immediately became best friends. For the next 10 or 15 years, we were pretty much inseparable. Our family started hanging out together and our kids grew up together. And I became Callie's godfather, which is actually very special to me. And we still talk and that sort of thing. Me and Pat were mainly drinking buddies. And no matter the occasion, there was always a day to celebrate with a beer. I recently retired and I invited Pat to my retirement party. And then very shortly, I saw Pat had passed, which was very sad. I was hoping to see my friend at my retirement party and it just didn't happen. Anyway, I was heartbroken. So Pat and I used to have this saying. When we used to drink, we would take a drink and then we would always go, "What does that taste like?" And we go, "It tastes like more." That was our saying. And I still use that saying now, even though me and Pat really do not hang out anymore.
Yeah.
But I actually just use it just like yesterday. So tonight, whether you're drinking water, or tea, or beer, hold your glass up and in Pat's honor, say "Tastes like more." That's what I got. And it's open if somebody wants to speak.
Yes. Anybody have anything they'd like to say or share? I'm going to close with the poem in the program. And then if anybody would like to take a candle to light for dead, that's what they're here for. God's garden. God looked around his garden and found an empty place. He then looked down upon the earth and saw your tired face. He put his arms around you and lifted you to rest. God's garden must be beautiful. He always takes the best. He knew that you were suffering. He knew you were in pain. He knew that you would never get well on earth again. He saw the road was getting hard to climb, so he closed your weary eyelids and whispered, "Peace be thine." It broke our hearts to lose you, but you didn't go alone, for part of us went with you the day God called you home.
All right. Well, that concludes our service. If you guys want to hang out or come and say your piece, you're welcome to. And then you can join us at